from time to time I bump into people, or rather people bump into me, and they will wave at me and, "Hi, it's me." And I said, how am I supposed to know it's you when you're wearing a mask? So sometimes they think I'm being rude or I'm ignoring them, but I think they forget that they're wearing a mask. I'm not, so it's very easy to see that it's me. But if everyone's wearing a mask, eventually everybody starts to look the same, and all you see, well, all I see is the mask. So at the hospital, I bumped into someone in the lift who recognized me from somewhere. And it's only when people start to say, "Oh, you're the person who does this thing," or "You're the person who goes to this place," that's when you say, "Aha, I definitely know this person." Well, obviously, if they take the mask off, then you recognize them straight away. But sometimes I do meet people who I don't know. But maybe, as was the case the other day, last week, I bumped into someone walking the dog, and I tend to know the dogs rather than the owners. So this dog, I've not seen this dog before, but I'm a friend to all dogs. If I see a dog, I just need to know that the dog is friendly, and I will say hello. So I said hello to this one dog, and the owner said, "Oh, you're the one who plays the ukulele." But he didn't mean the ukulele. I don't play the ukulele, he meant the saxophone. But obviously he said, "You're the one who plays the ukulele." So obviously he knew me from somewhere, that I play an instrument. So that's how a conversation occurred. So really the reason why I'm doing this particular video is, obviously, like I just said, I don't recognize people wearing their masks. Even though they recognize me, I don't recognize them. It's really to do with the interpretation of how we, sometimes we meet people and we don't know anything about them, but we make a judgment. So, for example, I walk around most times dressed in a hoodie, and because the temperature's dropped now with that, if you see me out and about, I'm gonna be wearing a hoodie. So I have an appointment tomorrow with my sister's doctor. I saw him last Tuesday for the first time, and or rather he did all the talking, but he gave me his secretary's number, and he said if I need to speak to him about anything, to call her, and she'll pass the message on, and then he'll call me. So I called him on Thursday, and he called me back Friday morning, and we had quite a long chat. But the purpose of the conversation on my part was because I know that people judge people based on appearances, and I do know that if someone is a professional, well, that's how it usually works. If someone is a professional, they tend to take the position of knowing more, of being more intelligent, or So going back to my example with obviously I play an instrument, but I don't necessarily put it out there. So people look at me a different way, like, "Oh, I didn't know you played the saxophone," or something. But should it make a difference who I am because you found out something different about me? No, I'm still the same person. So I can only speak for myself, because I get that sort of treatment, and I've had it a lot in my life. I don't tend to make judgments on people like that. I tend to try to figure them out. So anyway, the whole point of me calling the doctor was because I knew that I needed to see him on Tuesday, and there was something that he said to me the previous week that I didn't quite feel comfortable with. But I don't tend to challenge people immediately. Like the thing he said, I straight away in my mind I raised my eyebrow, but I thought, okay, no, I won't say anything about it yet. I will go away and think about it and think how I want to address this. So I raised that and other things when we spoke on the phone. And so I am confident that when I see him tomorrow, it will be a completely different situation to how it was on the Tuesday of last week, because like I said, I was wearing the hoodie and people tend to judge you based on appearances. So if I turned up, I'm going to do a post on Facebook shortly. Right, so if I turn up, I'll give another example. I met a woman on the bus, I think it was last Saturday when I was going to the hospital to see my sister. And I've said before, I love shoes. I am a shoes freak and pretty dress freak, but dressed in my trainers and hoodie, you wouldn't be able to tell that. So I complimented her on her shoes. She had these really nice, they were red with like diamante, I just said were diamantes, but they were flat. I don't wear flat shoes. I like heels. So I said, like red is my favorite color anyway. So I said to her, I complimented her. I don't know her from anywhere, but I said, I love your shoes. And she, was sitting there and a conversation opened up. We're talking about shoes and things. But I kind of thought to myself, looking as I do, I'm sure she can't imagine me dressed up. So I went into my phone and found a picture of me dressed up wearing heels. And usually I have had to do that in the past when I'm talking to people, because I mean, I won't go into it, especially with guys, they treat you completely different. So for example, if I was running for a bus all dressed up, the bus driver would stop. But I'm sure there have been times, because I'm wearing the hoodie and I look a bit rough, street, whatever, the bus driver will just continue driving. And so I do find it quite funny that because I know the difference. I mean, even people have seen me when I'm dressed up and they don't recognize me, because even people, I remember one time in particular at the gym, it was a Christmas party, and I've got that kind of sense of humor. I'm quite mischievous. So the guy who was at the desk, I sometimes see him in the morning at the gym, 6:30 in the morning. So for a laugh, if you like, I went up to him and I said, hi, do you recognize me? And he said, no. And I said, are you sure? And he said, no. And I said, the hoodie, 6:30 in the morning? And it's like, he looked at me like, oh my gosh. Right. And, so it's not a question. I'm not vain. By no means am I vain. I just like pretty dresses, pretty shoes. So whenever I get an opportunity to dress up, I take it. But obviously with lockdown, there's no such opportunities. But as I said, I am in the same way that I don't recognize people behind the mask. Everybody looks the same, and it's not me judging them. It's just that I know that in the same way, when I'm dressed down, people are going to look at me a certain way. But obviously I need to speak to the doctor. So I needed him to know that I've got some level of intelligence, so that when we do meet tomorrow, Tuesday, he will come to the meeting with that in mind, after the things I said to him. It was just literally to make him know that just because I mean, I don't think I was rude, but sometimes you've got to be firm just so people hear you. And it was more to do with, just because you've studied and you've attained a qualification and you're a medical doctor, that's you in your field. You've got a lot of qualifications because you applied yourself and you put a lot of time into it. But in the same way, it doesn't mean that because you've done that you, and I actually said this to him, it doesn't mean that you're more intelligent than me or the next person because you've studied medicine. And I gave him the example that I've spent many years sewing. But although I might know more than the next person about sewing, it doesn't mean I'm more intelligent, that they're less intelligent. So it was just really to just get him into that situation, so that when we sit down and talk about my sister's health, he will not so much view me as an equal, because obviously he's a doctor, but you will have a little bit more appreciation for the fact that I do have a brain, that I'm not just somebody there to be talked at or to be talked to, but rather it's somebody to have a conversation with. as regards the situation. So I did say to him, before you make any decisions, I want to know about it. Before you go ahead and do anything, I need to know about it. But he thought I meant that I should be the first person to know, not my sister. But I had to explain to him that no, yes, you can speak to her, but obviously you need to speak to me because I'm supposed to be the next of kin. So you don't just go ahead and because the whole point is I hadn't spoken to anybody in nearly 4 weeks. I hadn't spoken to anybody for the first 2.5 to 3 weeks because people were just overlooking me. I wasn't important. I didn't fit into the equation. And it wasn't until something was said that they started to tread nicely. And I don't know. I just thought that there is some sense out of this nonsense, this particular video, that there's something that, maybe something there to make people think about how we all treat one another based upon appearances. So like I said, I treat everybody the same, but the only reason I do that is because I have experience where people have bypassed me. I don't presume that because someone is a certain way that they are more superior. You might be wearing a suit, you might speak well, you might have high qualifications. I don't assume that makes you more intelligent than me. And because you might be in an inferior position to me, and by saying inferior, I mean you might be a beggar on the street or something. It doesn't mean that you are less intelligent. It might mean that you've handled your life differently and you've ended up in that situation, but it doesn't mean that anybody is more intelligent than the other. So it is a shame that, we judge one another on appearances, but like I said, I think we don't have to take a defeatist attitude and say, oh, it's just because I wear a hoodie, just because I'm black, just because this, just because that. If you need to sort of get into a situation with somebody where you need to make yourself heard or understood, then I'm just saying that by example, and I do this all the time. You go and you put yourself forward and you have the conversation with them. You introduce yourself, if you like, and then they will see you from a different angle. I mean, sometimes like I said, people see me and it's like, oh, I didn't know you play the saxophone, and it's like, what difference does it make? What you do? Why did you need to know? So it's a bit like when people idolize, worship film stars and musicians and athletes. It's because they're doing something outstanding or something different or something that you, the person who's wowed by them, can't do. But it doesn't mean that they're any better than you or that they're worthy of that kind of interest. It's a bit like with Hollywood at the moment. There's nothing going on, and a lot of people have become disillusioned with the celebrities because they can see how empty they are. They're beyond going out there and performing on stage or pretending to be a certain character. When it comes down to it and they need to be themselves, there's not a lot there. So in the same way, again, because they're in the limelight and people think, wow, this person's so fantastic, so beautiful, so this, so that, and they just imagine them as more than themselves. And then it's like, you know what, they're actually not all that. And so that's the reality. So if you like, the situation that I put myself in with the doctor is to make him know that I'm more than the hoodie. I shouldn't need to explain that, and I'm not doing it because I need anybody to think more of me, because I look good when I dress up, right? And if I wanted people to think something of me, I would dress up all the time. I wouldn't wander around in a hoodie. But it's just, like I said, in some situations you need to put who you are across, so that you will end up with the results that you not so much that you want, but the results that need to happen. So that's just it, really. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. But like I said, I think tomorrow will be completely different to how it was last week, because he's had an introduction to Elizabeth Young. So anyway, it's bedtime, so I'll see you guys later.